Nestled in the remote Uinta Basin of Utah, far from the prying eyes of civilization, lies Skinwalker Ranch, a place shrouded in mystery and fear. For centuries, this land has been the epicenter of strange occurrences, where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural blur. The Ute tribe, who have inhabited the area for generations, believe the ranch is cursed, a place where malevolent entities known as skinwalkers, evil, shape-shifting witches, roam freely. Even today, the ranch is regarded with dread by the local tribes, who refuse to set foot on its soil. The land, spanning over 500 acres, has always been a place of enigmatic happenings. Stories of bizarre sightings and inexplicable events date back to the early settlers and even further to the Native American tribes. But it wasn't until the mid-1990s that Skinwalker Ranch entered the public consciousness, thanks to the experiences of the Sherman family, who unwittingly became the focal point of one of the most documented paranormal phenomena in modern history. The Shermans, Tom, Ellen, and their two teenage children, Robert and Lily, were looking for a fresh start. Tom, a seasoned rancher, had always dreamed of owning a large piece of land where he could raise cattle and enjoy the serenity of rural life. When they found the ranch, it seemed perfect. Sprawling acres of open land, a picturesque homestead, and enough room for their cattle to graze. It was everything they had ever wanted. Little did they know, the ranch was not just any ordinary piece of land. It was a place steeped in darkness, where the rules of reality seemed to bend. From the moment they set foot on the ranch, the Shermans sensed that something was off. The first sign was the unnatural silence that blanketed the area. The wind barely rustled the leaves, and the usual sounds of wildlife were conspicuously absent. It was as if the land was holding its breath, waiting. But Tom, ever the pragmatist, brushed it off as nerves. They had just moved, after all, and he was eager to get to work. But the strangeness didn't stop. On their first night, the family was startled awake by the sound of heavy footsteps on the roof. Tom grabbed his shotgun and went outside to investigate, but he found nothing. The night was still, the stars twinkling overhead as if mocking him. He stood there for a long moment, scanning the surroundings, but there was no sign of an intruder. Shaking his head, he dismissed it as a figment of his imagination and went back to bed. But in the days that followed, the incidents escalated. It started with the cattle, the backbone of their livelihood. The Shermans had brought a small herd with them, hoping to expand their operation. But within weeks, the animals began to disappear. At first, it was just one or two, but soon the losses became more frequent and bizarre. They found mutilated carcasses in the fields, but these were not the work of predators. The wounds were precise, surgical, as if done by someone, or something, with an intimate knowledge of anatomy. Organs were removed without a drop of blood spilled, and the cuts were so clean that Tom knew no ordinary animal could have caused them. One particularly chilling discovery was that of a calf, only a few days old, found completely eviscerated in broad daylight. The body was still warm, and there were no signs of a struggle, no tracks leading to or from the site. It was as if the poor creature had been lifted into the air, dissected, and dropped back down without disturbing the earth around it. The sight left Tom shaken to his core, but there was no time to dwell on it. The ranch needed to run, and he needed to keep his family safe. Ellen, meanwhile, began experiencing strange phenomena inside the house. It started with the feeling of being watched, an oppressive sensation that made her skin crawl. Then came the voices. At first they were faint whispers, indistinct and easy to ignore. But as time passed, they grew louder, more insistent. She couldn't make out what they were saying, but the tone was menacing, almost mocking. The voices seemed to come from the walls, the floors, the very air around her. She tried to rationalize it, telling herself it was the wind or the creaking of the old house. But deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. Robert and Lily were not immune to the ranch's strange influence. Robert, a skeptical teenager with a passion for science, was the first to see the shadow figures. They would flicker in and out of existence at the edge of his vision, disappearing whenever he tried to focus on them. At first, he thought it was just his imagination, but the figures became more frequent, more solid. He would catch glimpses of them in the barn, in the fields, and even inside the house. They never approached, never made a sound, but their mere presence filled him with a deep, inexplicable dread. Lily, on the other hand, was plagued by nightmares. Every night she would wake up screaming, convinced that someone or something was watching her from the foot of her bed. She described the figure as a tall, shadowy man with glowing red eyes who would stand silently staring at her until she woke up. No matter how much they tried to comfort her, the nightmares persisted, leaving her exhausted and terrified. As the days turned into weeks, the family's encounters with the unexplainable became more frequent and more intense. The Shermans began to feel as though they were living in a horror movie. The nights were the worst. The darkness seemed to come alive, wrapping around the house like a suffocating shroud. The sounds, scratching at the windows, tapping on the walls, grew louder, more insistent. They were prisoners in their own home, trapped by an unseen force that seemed to feed off their fear. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Tom and Robert were out checking the fences that bordered their land. The air was thick with tension, and the usual evening sounds of crickets and distant coyotes were conspicuously absent. As they walked, they heard a low, guttural growl coming from the tree line. They stopped, hearts pounding, scanning the area with their flashlights, but saw nothing. The growl came again, closer this time, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. And then they saw it, a creature unlike anything they had ever encountered. It stood on two legs, towering over them, its body covered in coarse, matted fur. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow in the fading light, and its mouth was full of sharp, jagged teeth. The creature let out a roar, a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the very earth. Tom raised his shotgun and fired, but the creature moved with unnatural speed, disappearing into the shadows before the shot could connect. They ran back to the house, locking the doors and windows behind them. Tom called the local authorities, but when the police arrived, they found nothing. No tracks, no blood, no sign that anything out of the ordinary had happened. The incident left Tom shaken. He was a man of reason, not prone to flights of fancy, but there was no denying what he had seen. The creature was real, and it was hunting them. The family's descent into madness was swift. Ellen's nightmares grew more vivid, and she began waking up with scratches on her arms and legs that she couldn't explain. Robert and Lily became reclusive, refusing to leave their rooms except when absolutely necessary. Tom, once a strong and confident man, began to doubt his own sanity. He started seeing the creature in his dreams, always watching, always waiting. It was as if the land itself had turned against them, as if they were intruders in a place that didn't belong to them. The family dog, a once fearless and loyal companion, became a nervous wreck. It would bark incessantly at shadows, refusing to go outside after dark. One night, the dog disappeared, and the Shermans found it the next morning, mutilated in the same way as their cattle. The loss of their dog was the final blow. The ranch had taken too much from them: cattle, their dog, their sanity. They knew they couldn't stay any longer. The final straw came one night when the family was awakened by a bright light shining through their windows. It was as if the sun had risen in the middle of the night, flooding the house with an unnatural, blinding light. The air buzzed with electricity, and the house began to shake. The Shermans huddled together in the living room, terrified as the light grew brighter and the shaking more violent. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The light vanished, and the house was plunged into darkness. They packed up and left the ranch the next morning, selling it at a loss to a real estate developer who was more interested in the land than the house. But the nightmares followed them. Tom was haunted by visions of the creature. Ellen continued to hear the whispers, and their children struggled to put the horrors of Skinwalker Ranch behind them. After the Shermans left, the ranch was purchased by billionaire Robert Bigelow, who was fascinated by the paranormal. Bigelow funded extensive research on the property through his organization, the National Institute for Discovery Science, IDS. For years, scientists and researchers attempted to document the strange phenomena using state-of-the-art equipment, but the ranch seemed to resist their efforts. Cameras malfunctioned, data was corrupted, and any evidence of the supernatural remained elusive. Despite the lack of concrete proof, the legends surrounding Skinwalker Ranch only grew. Local Native American tribes spoke of the ranch as a place cursed by the spirits of the land, a portal between worlds where skinwalkers roamed freely. The ranch, they said, was a place where the laws of nature didn't apply, where the past and present collided, and where malevolent forces preyed on the living. Today, Skinwalker Ranch remains a place of mystery and terror. Those who dare to visit speak of an overwhelming sense of dread, of feeling watched by unseen eyes. Strange lights still appear in the sky, disembodied voices echo through the night, and shadowy figures are glimpsed in the corners of vision. The ranch continues to defy explanation, a place where the truth is more terrifying than any fiction, and where the shadows of the past still linger, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to wander into their grasp. As the years go by, Skinwalker Ranch remains a focal point for those who seek to understand the unknown. Paranormal investigators, scientists, and thrill-seekers alike are drawn to the ranch, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural, or simply experience its eerie atmosphere for themselves. But those who enter its boundaries often leave with more questions than answers, and the ranch's dark reputation only grows stronger with time. For the locals, the ranch is a place best left alone, a cursed land where ancient forces still hold sway. They speak in hushed tones of the skinwalkers, the malevolent beings who can take the form of animals or even other humans, using their dark powers to spread fear and chaos. To them, the ranch is a reminder that some places are not meant to be understood, that some mysteries are best left unsolved. Yet, despite the warnings, the ranch continues to draw attention. Documentaries, books, and TV shows have been made about its eerie history, each adding to the mythos that surrounds it. Some claim that the government is involved, that they know more about the ranch's secrets than they let on. Conspiracy theories abound, suggesting that the ranch is a testing ground for advanced technology, or that it sits atop an ancient, powerful energy source. Whatever the truth may be, Skinwalker Ranch remains one of the most enigmatic and disturbing locations in the world. Its dark legacy is a testament to the power of fear, the unknown, and the human mind's ability to conjure monsters in the darkness. And so, the ranch waits, silent and brooding, its secrets buried deep beneath the earth, waiting for the next chapter in its long, unsettling history to be written.